for the minister to explain the raising of the money. I hope he can raise the money. This economy can do with a boost. People are feeling pain. They need hope. They don't need mirages. They need honesty so that they know what they're facing going forward. Madam Speaker, the question is, put another way, how is the budget being financed? It's about what he puts on paper. We have already a very tight, well, in the budget itself, in the estimates, all the borrowings are already explained and accounted for. They're specified there. So it's not expected that that category or the receipts can be made up by any other loans because those are already specified here. In any event, we know that the borrowing, the room for borrowing, the space that this government has is extremely limited because we already have a situation where 42 cents from every dollar of current revenue goes to pay debt for debt servicing. That's 58 cents left to do everything else. And the debt has to be paid. Because if you don't, the consequences are even more grave. It becomes more expensive to borrow. You get a bad name. Maybe even some disbursements may be affected. So we know that the debt has to be paid. And we have a situation where 42 cents out of every dollar raised in current revenue goes to it. We also have a situation where the debt to GDP ratio has climbed from 85% last year, used to be down in the 70s, to 98.1% of GDP. So the debt is pretty much the size of our economy. So it's no wonder, Madam Speaker, that we see in the media the concerns raised by the IMF regarding the risk of overall debt distress in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Madam Speaker, if the honorable member would give way. Yes. I would appreciate, just for my own elucidation, if he could point me to the IMF document in the media that raised the concern about debt distress in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Honorable.
Madam Speaker, I'm not the Minister's Research Officer. I didn't cite a document. I cited an agent. I cited an agency. I cited an agency, which, well, you know very well what it says. But Madam Speaker, the point is, the situation that we have here is one that is untenable. What it says is that the government, I mean, if you have 41, 42 cents in every dollar paying debt, you have a debt to GDP ratio of 98%. You don't even need a document from anybody to tell you that. You're in serious problem. That is evident by itself. So, Madam Speaker, what this tells me is that there's very little room for the government to be borrowing anymore. And so, where are the funds going to come from? Where is the plan? We need a plan for productive investments to support local businesses, farmers, to get the economy going again and creating jobs and then tax revenue for the government. So if you don't have it, as it's set out here, at least it's not specified, and the borrowing situation looks very much foreclosed, where's it going to come from? Taxes? The people of this country can't afford any more taxes. They have been long suffering over the past year and a half, 2 years. And some just simply have been suffering. They can't afford any new taxes. So what it suggests to me, Madam Speaker, is that the budget or the estimates, as the numbers have indicated, and we will study them more closely with time. But what is evident is that the estimates as presented as the, if you like, the architecture of the government's economic thrust for the next year doesn't point to anything that is positive, transformative, or suggesting that there is going to be some world, even in the biggest economy in the world, the United States. They're looking at COVID and they're saying, boy, you know what? As bad as this is, let's consider this like a reset button. And we start thinking of ways in which we could do things different and better. It requires investment. It requires gray matter, thinking about it as to what is feasible. And then pointing in a direction that everybody can see it and either buy into or can offer critical suggestions as to ways in which it can improve. But it's just, it seems to me, Madam Speaker, in this particular document, the same sort of puffery and inflation of the estimate to make it look good. I don't understand. I ask myself, what is the point? What is the point? If you're not going to be able to fund it and you can't say so, let's be honest and say, okay, this is what we have. This is how we're going to make the best of it. And this is how we're going to go forward. And then let us put our shoulders to the wheel and get the job done. More power to him. But the evidence here, what is seen here on the document, is that that is not the case. What we have going forward is more tinkering and incrementalism. Madam Speaker, you know, I believe that the government intend to collect is a category of funding that the minister says he's going to get over the course of this year. In order to finance his budget. And this is after you've taken into account all the money raised in taxes, all the loans and grants that he's getting from friendly governments and other and multilateral million. And so you see on page Roman numerals 7, where there's a summary of the capital receipts. There's like a task until we acknowledge that this is a problem and the minister comes up front and explain to people what exactly he intends to do over the course of the next year with the budget. That during my budget address. Just one other point that we have to, again, to put this 265 million as in context. This money is actually intended to be raised from domestic receipts. So it's coming from internally. It's the money coming from abroad. That's what is said in the estimates themselves. So you have to get it from internal sources. Makes it even more. Doubtful, skeptical, Bregg's credulity that those funds can be raised domestically. Madam Speaker, I want to address a couple of areas of particular interest to me. There are 3 areas that I want to address in the remaining time I have on the specific ministries. Last year, I spoke about the audit office, an office that I have great respect for. Not to pick on them, but to re-emphasize the importance of the work that they do. It's a fundamental part of the accountability and transparency mechanism of our government, the way it operates. I note that even with all the challenges that the department has, that no additional staff has been allocated or budgeted for next year to help them to catch up. The most important, function seems to me that the audit office does is to report, to prepare, to audit the government finances, and to prepare a report of the public accounts of the government, which is supposed to be done every year. And we're not supposed to be 6 and 7 years behind. The target that was set for last year was that the office would get 2015 done because the last one that we had was 2014. They were supposed to get 2015 done by June, I believe, and 26, end of the year, 2017 and 2018. I don't know where they are with 2017 and 2018. I know that we have received the Director of Audit reports of 2015 and 2016. And these reports are very important because it's an opportunity for us and for the general public, and not just this report, but other reports, performance reports and so forth that the Director of Audit, that the Audit Office prepares, gives them an opportunity to see how the finances are being managed. For example, Madam Speaker, we raised the issue of the discrepancy on the overdraft account between what the bank says and what the Accountant General says is the state of the overdraft. And over the course of a 5-6 year period, the difference between the two amounted to over $95 million. Where do you think that information comes from? It comes from the work of the Director of Audit. And the Director of Audit has raised this question, this matter, over and over again. And it has not been addressed over the years. This is a serious problem. When the Director of Audit says, I can't explain, the Director of Audit says, the Accountant General hasn't given information that they could explain this discrepancy. And in the most recent report that we received, the 2016 report, the failure to reconcile that account between the bank and the Director of the Accountant General continues. To the extent of $18 million at office. In the first 10 years, I'm glad that the attention that we have brought to it now seems to have injected some urgency, at least in the work of the Director about it, to say that even if we don't make our target of producing the report, I have it as a goal that I wish to see accomplished. I saw the work of the strategic priorities of the Department of Audit. Coming year is to conduct or audits of the disaster relief programs that were administered by government during the last year. And this is at page 27 of the estimates, in the middle of the page. It says one of the key program strategies activities for 2022 is to conduct 2 post audits of disaster expenditure to determine whether public funds and resources mobilized in response to COVID-19 and the eruption of La Sofia volcano were used for the purpose intended, and that procedures employed conform to existing legislation, policies, and accounting practices. I look forward to that, Madam Speaker. You will recall that when this Honorable House considered the relief package for COVID and also for volcano relief, we and the Secretary House would propose, we say, well, this is such a massive, especially with COVID, a massive and new sort of problem that we're encountering, that we need to have a broad-based approach. We have a special committee of the House that will help to look into the needs already sufficient and that we should use them. Never mind that the reports of the Director of Audit are 6 years behind. So I welcome this initiative, and I hope that the resources will be provided and that the work will be completed in 2022 as the document promises here. It's not going to be good enough for us to get it 4 or 5 years down the road.
Remember, you have 7 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Madam
7
Speaker.
minutes.
Madam Speaker, part of that program, of the COVID relief, and this is something that I trust will be a part of the work of the Director of Audit. Of course, I can't tell the Director of Audit what to do. The Director of Audit is an independent office. But as a member of this Honorable House, I can raise questions that if the Director chooses to, she can take notice of. And that is to say, I know that one of the principal programs for business stimulation, business growth, job creation, and so forth, that the government had implemented as part of the COVID relief was the PRIME initiative, the PRIME program. And so it's my hope that it's important for us to know how the program has managed, whether it has created the jobs, what needs to be done to make it effective, if it can be, or if it's not being so. And part of this audit, because PRIME is part of the COVID relief program, hopefully will give us an idea as to how effective this program has been and whether it should be augmented, it should be altered, or it shouldn't be pursued. That can only come when you have an independent assessment of it, maybe a performance audit, but certainly as part of the work that the audit department does when it reviews the use of public funds for disaster expenditure, because COVID expenditure is disaster expenditure and PRIME is part of that, that it would look at that program as well and give us a heads up as to how things are going. I look forward to that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish also to address two other things. I'll do the House of Assembly more. I don't suppose too many members of the public are going to be interested because it affects the work that we do in this House. At page 33 of the strategic priorities, it says that of the House of Assembly paid fully at their maximum in all functions of the House. Madam Speaker, that is so relevant given the discussion we had this morning regarding members' ability to function at their maximum in this honorable House. And I trust that in the application, the pursuit of this priority, that the discussion we had this morning, not to revisit it, but it's here as part of the estimates, that becomes part of the work of ensuring that all members have the necessary tools to attend and participate fully at their maximum in all functions of this honorable House. I see on the comment section, it says the department continues to provide quality service to its members. Well, that's good to hear, but given the discussion we had this morning, there's more that needs to be done. A second aspect of that, Madam Speaker, to ensure that members have the tools, is the provision of updated laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The hard copies, Madam Speaker. When I entered this House, I got a set of the hard copies of the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I believe most members at the time did. But I find myself, Madam Speaker, having to scramble all the time and send my research assistant looking for various updated pieces of legislation. The online stuff is not user-friendly. And I see members of this honorable House and various ministries, they come in with their bound copies under their arm because it's more useful. And for me, as a leader of the opposition, I have to feel as if somehow I am not entitled to know what the laws that I pass in this honorable House, that they are available and accessible to me just as easily. There's no allocation in the estimates for that. If it is, I haven't seen any. And it's something that needs to be addressed because it does affect the way in which members of this House do their work. And finally, I note that there is also a promise, or at least an objective, to create an environment in which the Public Accounts Committee can function. Again, this is something that I'm not sure exactly what has been done or what will be done, but I urge that the work be done to make it so that that committee can do its work. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to address a matter that is of critical importance to the economy of this country, and certainly one that is important constituency where the activity is very important, and that is fisheries. And I have questions really that I hope that the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries will be able to address. At page 444, where again the key program activities, or strategies and activities for the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries are lined out, and that section deals with fisheries. It says here at page 444, it's a matter of some interest. I think most people in the country don't really know much about it. It says there was a reduction in the high seas tuna longline fleet from 33 to 4 fishing vessels. And notice was given for the full termination by the end of first quarter 2022. Notice by whom? What is the impact, if any, of essentially what looks like the phasing out of this industry? Hmm? You want to answer it now? Sure.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Yes, page 444. And it speaks about the issue of the reduction of the high seas tuna longline fleet from 33 to 4 fishing vessels, and notice was given for the full termination by the end of the first quarter 2022. And of course, the explanation is this, and we couldn't contain the full explanation on the page. But for decades, we had Vincentian flagged vessels fishing on the high seas, not in Vincentian waters. And we are moving towards full global compliance in our fight and our quest to reduce illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. So this doesn't pertain directly to the fishing industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The reason why it says here, explore the opportunities for fleet expansion. We want to develop a local fleet owned by Vincentian flagged vessels that would go on to the high seas and bring back the fish to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And persons who have the view that that's not so. There were Vincentian flagged vessels fishing on the high seas, which is the common heritage of mankind, and land. We want you to be able to monitor where you are landing fish, or where fish is landed that is carrying the Vincentian flag. And because of that, we had the red card, which the honorable member knows. So in order to advance the industry, we have to basically close that part of the registry, which facilitates the flagging. As I said, it will take 2 to 3 pages for me to explain that there.
Yeah. Well, Madam Speaker, I know enough about it that the fishing notice was given for the full termination, didn't say by whom. And then also on the left-hand column, explore opportunities of fleet expansion, which sounds very promising, but what does that mean? Getting some more of the different people to continue it, or as the minister now has said, he's talking about getting local people involved. But if that is the case, then that should be one of the objectives that you have going forward. You haven't had that. There's no indication here that you really intend to pursue that. But anyway, that I know is, if coming somewhere down the road, compared to the next issue that I'm going to deal with, which is the local fisheries. So when I ask the question, Madam Speaker, of the minister, what is the impact for us of essentially what looked like the phasing out of an entire section of an industry, if you look at it just based on what's written, it was really getting to the point as to whether we are, excuse me, actually benefiting from this component of our fishing. Madam Speaker, is much more beneficial to our local people. And I want to deal with one in at page 445. The minister speaks of the survey of the fishing industry, a fishing industry survey, essentially for conch and lobster. And that was postponed. I'm just going to raise it because I know that I'm pushing for time. And the
Yes, you
minister
have
could
just
comment.
about another minute or so.
Thank you. The minister can deal with it when he stands up. He says that the survey wasn't done because of COVID and so forth. I want to know what the intention is because this is something of critical importance, given the fact that there are new players, large players in the market for the export of fishing. The second issue, at same page 445, the minister talks about enhancing marketing and distribution of fish and fish products locally, regionally, internationally. But I note that he mentions here the fisheries centers. One I know is in Beckway, one is in Owea, Kingstown, Barley, various other places in southern Grenadines and so forth. But there is no mention of the large private entity, Rainforest Seafood, which has a facility out at Calico. And from what the minister has said elsewhere, it sounds like this is going to be a major player in the export, the enhanced marketing and distribution of fish internationally. And so I wonder why there is no mention of it here and what impact that private venture will have on the overall marketing. Because I mean, if you go on the basis of what's here, you suggest that the fisheries centers is the key to the marketing of fisheries overseas, when in fact this major facility, I've heard the minister speak about this elsewhere, seems to be one of the primary thrusts that he has for marketing fish overseas. And finally, by way of clarification, I would like the minister to, at page yes, 479. It may be a simple explanation, but it was a little confusing for me. It's dealing with, yeah, 479 fish catch. If you look at the top of the page, quantity of fish landings, it says for 2021, 1.488. What is that? Value, weight? Because lower down, it says increase in fish. So I'm not sure exactly. Quantity tends to suggest it could be volume or it could be money. See, it's important because it looks at the trajectory of the industry, and it looks like sort of incremental increase, but still it's significant. If you say from 2021 to 2024, you're going to increase the value of the catch by 600,000, whatever the unit is. It's quantity. So it's in pounds because lower down it says, if you see down at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4 from the bottom, increase in fish landings in pounds. And then there's a different number there. Anyway, you could get some clarification. You know, I am very interested in this, what's happening with the blue economy, the fishing industry, and so forth. I know people in my constituency who they make a living and they want to do better at it. I know people on the mainland here in Owea and then southern Grenadines and so forth, they want to, and we have potential there. And so when you speak about it, then you know we have to have signals that this thing is going to be really something that's going to take off. You know, and I look in the recurrent expenditure. There's talk about expanding, strengthening the blue economy via technical in the recurrent expenditure or on the capital side. On the capital side, between pages 810 and 811, you see, you talk about providing money to buy boats and so forth, but you have a total of like $200,000 in 2021, $1 million allocated in 2021 in total revised. And the entire project costs $1 million. That's not going to transform fishing. And certainly not if you're going to do it on the high seas.
Honorable member,
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
time is up.
What I want to see, Madam Speaker, is that there is a real thrust, a real initiative to say, listen, man, this is something we could make a decent living at, and put the resources where your mouth is, so to speak. I spoke to some fishermen, just one point. Last weekend in my constituency. There was one small fishing boat out there. And the fellas will tell you, yes, they want to do it, but they say, where are we going to get the money from? We could build a speedboat and buy a 75 horsepower engine. But what you're talking about here is beyond our.
Madam Speaker, I thought that we had a very important, very interesting morning session. And so that I'm sure that most of us are a bit hungry at this time. So accordingly, I wish to ask for the suspension of this sitting at this time for the luncheon interval until 3 p.m. today. At 3 p.m.
Honorable members, the question is that the sitting of this honorable house do stand suspended for the luncheon period until 3 p.m. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the sitting stands suspended.